Don't blink, it's your blink. Welcome to the video, welcome to the show. Guys are doing well, guys are having a fantastic 11th of July, August 2024. I wanted to do another videos on UFC. You guys heard me a month ago speaking about how I discovered this new YouTube channel called Luron. I was doing compilation of UFC, so mixed martial art fighter, mixed martial art, which is MMA, UFC. Still haven't found the difference in between those, so please cool me. But yeah, so been watching a lot of UFC, and I've grown to respect. And you guys can dislike him, they can like him. I don't give a fuck. It's your opinion. It's my opinion. I've grown to like the man in charge, which is Dana White, which has a which has a very good moral. My apologies. I just ate a lot, so I'm full. Decompressing with a video. And I go into disrespect that man, for his loyalty, for his business sense. He kept Joe Rogan, not because Joe Rogan was popular, because Joe Rogan was there. He was a fan of the show. The fact that he's employing the same people, the fact that he built a whole business. But this video is not this video. Not about Dana White. I saw an interview he was doing, and he was saying he was some UFC protester, and I was wondering to myself, because I actually, as you guys know, I'm a newer fan to UFC. I've been only paying attention here and there for the last couple of years, but really getting into it for the past month. And it's kind of funny because I do remember being a kid, right? And we didn't have the cable because the cable was going out. It was a weird period in between cable and like a month in between the cable and the newest thing that we're gonna get, which is basically TV on demand. And we had this English channel. I don't even remember the name of the channel. I don't even remember what it was. But I remember watching one season of The Ultimate Fighter. And why did I watch it? Because it was GSP, Georges St. Pierre. I think that the guy had blonde hair, blonde curly hair, right? And the video is about. So they were saying, oh, it's a dangerous sport. It's people fighting, and I wanted to give value to the sport. I want to give UFC value. I know it doesn't need me for value, but I wanted to put in my 2 cents. I want to put in my grain of salt. I wanted to put in what I thought was needed to put in. See, if you go back in the time we were fighting, we've always been fighting the gladiator, although we're a ploy by the government or the people in power to divert the populace from their ever increasing taxes. But yeah, so the gladiator were slaves who killed each other, right? And then there was a certain nobility in that sport. You were a celebrity. You risked your life. You had no rights. There's this beautiful thing. Am I saying that having a slavery is beautiful? Absolutely not. What I'm saying is there was this beauty in the fact that if I die, I die. Nobody gives a shit. I'm a slave. If I win, I'm a celebrity. And the people that would say, if you win 10 fights, you win your freedom, which is kind of like the ultimate dream for a fighter. See, and then we're moving along. We have multiple fighting sports. Purely for sporting, we had fencing. It was purely for forcing. That's an interesting fact for you. If you look at the Second World War, a lot of the lieutenants had scar here. Like people were saying, oh, it was the leader, the frog. If you don't know the poem The Frog, check it out. If you know the poem The Frog, you know exactly what I'm talking about. I'm not gonna say his name, but a lot of the general were practicing fencing and they didn't have masks. And you go further in and you go with sport like boxing. Boxing was so important. You see, you could call WWE a sport. And before you say WWE is a before you say, oh, it's scripted, I wouldn't go with a sport. I wouldn't go with a fighting sport. I would go with a sport because it takes a lot of demand. But it was still people play fighting, right? Now, before you tell me, Inc., why you're comparing boxing with WWE? Well, if you know the underground of boxing, there was a lot of money involved in boxing. A lot of the matches were predicted or they were controlled, right? Oh, you're gonna go down on the third round. And then you look at what happened next, which was karate, or what happened before. I'm not sure. I don't know my story about fighting sport, but what happened in the what happened in the what should we call it? It's such a I shouldn't make videos after I eat or after a long days of work, but I fuck it. I'm gonna do what I want, right? The mentality we're having, that's the mentality, that's the goal in life that we're having. So that's what we're gonna do. Am I right? Am I wrong? Who knows? I don't know what character was before boxing. However, what I do know is those two sports were fighting. They were in Olympics. They were a sport. They were extremely well regarded. There was sumo wrestling. Sumo wrestling dates from I don't know when, but it was extremely old. And then we have the last one, which is technically UFC. I know what you're saying. UFC has been in the works for decades, right? Since 1990 something. Which is possibly as old as me. However, there's constantly new sport, and what is interesting about UFC, it's a mixed martial art. So, for example, there's a new style of fighting that happened. You just happen to see it, and because you happen to see it, you can integrate it in the sports. And it's the fighter. I'm growing to respect the fighter and itself. I'm really growing into respecting the sport in itself. I can see how people would say, "Oh, it's only violence." However, it is the best form of violence. These guys aren't forced to fight. We're not a gladiator. They're not slave. They choose to do so. They're athletes that choose to do so. Um, they plan their entire life. There's multiple people wanting to fight. There's the best fighter, the best in grappling, the best in striking, the best in standing, the best and this certain type of takedown. This other type of takedown. Right now, I'm listening to a slap tournament, which was also organized by Dana White, and that's another sport. Do I think the slap is as interesting as UFC? No, because UFC there's a couple of moves that are really well, and all in all what I'm trying to say, what I'm trying to say is like, hey, I understand it's a lot of fighting, but again, those people are it's a beautiful sport, and you have to understand that there's no better than this. What's gonna be next after this? It's gonna be a new fighting sport, right? Well, a new fighting style could be introduced to UFC, could be introduced to MMA, right? So what's next? And I believe the next thing is virtual fighting, which is back to Gladiator, where is a virtual character that you can just kill, right? It's not a real person, so you're not a murderer, but we're gonna go back to the Gladiator. So UFC is possibly the last great fighting sport. And I believe that just for that, amongst other reasons, of course, but I do believe it's kind of interesting. So yeah, so that's the video. But I love you guys. You matter. I'll see you guys soon. Take it easy. Peace.